Self-compassion is simply the ability to turn understanding, acceptance, and empathy and love inward. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence or self-pity or anything like that. In fact, people who practice self-compassion have greater social connections, greater emotional intelligence, greater happiness, and overall greater life satisfaction. Self-compassion has also been shown to correlate with less anxiety, less depression, less shame, and less fear of failure. And who doesn't need more of that? Studies have also shown that when we have self-compassion, we're less likely to depend on others to validate our self-worth, which is extremely important. So I'm going to give you seven ways to give yourself some self-compassionate, 7 tips and techniques to be self-compassionate. Keep in mind, some of these you may have already heard, especially with this month's theme at PBT. So number one, pause and notice. Get in the habit of catching cruel, judgmental thoughts before they take over. Stop these negative messages from going any further. So when you catch yourself having these negative statements that come into your mind, immediately combat them by saying out loud, if possible, something that is the opposite of what came into your mind and certainly positive. So example, why can't I do this? You know, instead of saying that, how about I can't do this yet, but I've surprised myself before, and with a little creativity, I'm confident I will eventually be able to do this. So it's basically changing the inner dialogue into something more effective, something more productive, something more positive. Number two, kindness. Be your own best friend. That's one of the things I tell our son every day before he leaves for school. Remember, make good and godly decisions and be your own best friend. How do you think things might change if you responded to yourself in the same way that you typically respond to a close friend when he or she is suffering? So tell yourself, I'm sorry you're suffering and I love you. Use physical touch, whether it's rubbing your arms, a hand on your cheek. Basically, what this does is it sends a biological signal to your nervous system that you are safe. So get into the habit of showing yourself mercy and grace and compliment yourself throughout the day, whether it's silently or out loud. So again, just simply be kind, be your own best friend, show the same love and understanding and patience and kindness that you would a good friend to yourself, because after all, we're supposed to be our own best friend. Number three, treat yourself. Treat yourself as if you were a small child. You know, consider when a child might want or need some reassurance because they're hurt. That child could be your own, or it could be your imaginary self, your imaginary child. Although I always do say that we're all tall children. So in a way, either one applies. But much progress can be made by giving the self the very compassion that you would give to a child. And again, if you don't have a child or can't relate, I mean, feel free to think of a beloved pet. But regardless, how would you treat that child or that loving, significant pet? And once you navigate that, then start treating yourself accordingly. Number four, remember that you're not alone. And this is very important with self-compassion, because oftentimes, you know, especially during times of suffering or betrayal or pain, we think of ourselves as going through this alone. But, you know, to feel is to be human. And whatever you're going through, it's also being experienced by millions of others across the globe. If we could recognize our shared humanity, that not one of us is without struggles and hurts, then we can begin to feel more connected with others, with a sense that, you know, we're all going through this together. Life is hard. You know, nobody gets through this life without pain and suffering and heartache and heartbreak, unfortunately. So many people believe they're broken or quote screwed up, when in actuality, we're all fumbling through this scriptless life, this existence together. So self-compassion is about giving yourselves the understanding that we're human and we have our flaws, we are fallible, and we're all in this together. And if you give yourself some self-compassion, you're probably a step above many others who can't or won't or don't know how. Number four, speaking of imperfections, give yourself permission to be imperfect. Self-compassion is about giving ourselves room to simply be human, to be flawed and at times maybe sensitive or lazy or unproductive, without having to define ourselves by those flashes of temporary feelings or emotions or behaviors. It's a, self-compassion is about cultivating a perspective over ourselves that we never shut ourselves down and never lose faith in our own potential, just because we may fly off the deep end one time with our spouse or our children or ourselves. Um, or if we want to even wallow in self-pity for a whole weekend in our apartment or our house. Again, these are temporary thoughts, temporary emotions, temporary flaws. They are not who we are as a whole. So give yourself some self-compassion, understanding. Number six, write yourself a letter. I know I say this quite often in my classes, but there's such good reasons to write yourself a letter. It triggers so many things in our brain. But this letter could be as short as 2 sentences or as long as 200 pages. You could write yourself one letter, multiple letters, because we all need compassion in different ways in different areas. But basically, write something down that you're going through and you need to show yourself some self-compassion. Write this letter as if your best friend sent it to you and said all the things you needed to hear. You know what you need to hear. Put that out down in a letter, all the things that you need to hear. If you need some prompts or some help, let me give you some questions. So if you want to write a letter to yourself, think to yourself, how would your friend let you know that you're simply human like everyone else, and that everybody has strengths and weaknesses? So how could your friend write that in a letter that you would most be receptive to? How would your friend tell you to stop letting the issue drag you down? So again, you know how to speak to yourself. What would be something your best friend can tell you to help you remember this is only a temporary thing, stop allowing it to drag yourself down? Another prompt you could ask yourself is there any change that your friend or you would recommend you to make? Are there any repositions? Are there any ways to think about this different? Are there any ways to go about this differently? Get creative. How would your friend recommend that you make these changes? And hold yourself to a higher standard. So many people want a yes friend, who just want to tell their friend something and have their friend say, oh yes, that sounds like a great idea, but that's really not serving you. So raise yourself to a higher standard, and write yourself a letter on behalf of your quote friend, raising yourself to a higher standard. That's probably more self-compassion than just being a yes person. And how would your friend communicate their desire that you be happy and that you do well in life? Listen, if a true friend wants you to be happy, wants you to do well in life, wants you to succeed. So write yourself a letter within those dynamics. Now, after writing this letter, put it aside for a while. It's all fresh in your head. What you want to do is come back to it a little bit later and read it very slowly with a complete fresh perspective. Let the words sink in, allowing yourself to feel compassion that your friend is showing you. Again, you can come back to this letter multiple times. You can write yourself multiple letters depending on what you're going through. You can also write yourself many letters depending on what you need. If you need somebody that just says, I'm here for you, I hear you, I love you, don't give up, write yourself that. But if you need another friend that said then you need a little kick in the butt from, then write yourself that kind of letter. Stop wallowing, get up right now and do A, B, and C. Let's make this work, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is the last tip and technique I'm going to give you for this class. And it's probably the easiest to do, but for some reason, it's the most difficult to execute. So compliment yourself every single day, multiple times a day. And again, I don't know why this is so hard for people. I guess it is difficult for people to receive a compliment. But like I said, I saved the best for last because to me, this is the simplest yet most difficult for some reason. Um, Too many days begin with us feeling like, we need to correct everything about ourselves. Our shirt doesn't fit right. Our hair is messy from sleeping on it. Our skin is breaking out again. It's easy for these thoughts to become a default and turn it into a mantra in our heads. So instead, make it a point of complimenting yourself every single day, whether it's about your appearance, your work ethic, something nice that you did for a loved one, or even a stranger, an accomplishment, whether it's big or small, even the tiniest ones, like getting up and making yourself a cup of coffee, getting up and making your bed. Give yourself a compliment, anything that you're proud of, even in the least tiniest bit. Um, and get in the habit of that. So many people will compliment themselves once. Compliment yourself multiple times throughout the day, and digest that compliment, eat that compliment, love that compliment, validate that compliment. Most important, believe in that compliment. Um, some people find, just as a side note, some people find that practicing self-compassion, their pain initially actually increases at first. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, it's a phenomena that's called backdraft. And it's a firefighting term that describes what happens when, let's say, a door is burning in a house, or a house is burning and a door is opened. The oxygen that rushes in, and allows the flames to rush out, that is called backdraft. It's a similar process, can occur. Sorry, it's a similar process, occur when we open the doors to our hearts. Love comes in and old pain goes out. So, in my own opinion, in my own words, because I tell people this often, your journey to self introspection, your journey to therapy or coaching, I initially I equate it with the process of purifying gold. So one of the processes of purifying gold is when it's found, which is usually in a mine that's full of dirt and debris and all this other stuff. It's placed in this hot, like lava substance. And basically what happens is when all of the dirt and debris comes out of this gold, it rises to the top. And then you kind of get rid of the top piece, which is getting rid of all that dirt and debris and ugliness. And then some more dirt and debris and whatever is not gold comes out of this fragment that's found, rises to the top, and then you kind of push it away. And after a few cycles, you're left with pure gold. So it's the same thing with ourselves. When we are working on or addressing or swiping away our old pain, what we want is what's left is the purest you, just like the purest gold. So although admittedly, we're not going to get the purest self as quick as the purest gold, but you get what I'm saying. So again, you might go into this initially and feel all this yuckiness. Well, keep in mind, all that yuckiness is coming to the surface. That's what you're dealing with. So don't be scared of that. Embrace it, acknowledge it, so it can be addressed. I want to pretty much end my spiel or this class by saying that we all have the ability to be compassionate. We do. In fact, like I said before, we show many people, even strangers at a grocery store, on the streets, compassion or one way or the other. So if we are to be our own best friend, and we should be, then our compassion must or should start with ourselves.